Okay, so there was some issues with this beach when it was first built a number of years ago. There was a seawall as well as some other kind of bulkheads that were meant to preserve the beach. But what actually ended up happening is it impeded the natural cycling of the beach and the natural way that the beach kind of comes in and out. And what happened is the beach dropped by about 3 or 4 feet. It's a really big distance, and it covered up and destroyed something called eelgrass. And eelgrass beds are a primary habitat for forage fish like sand lance and herring. And so when those fish disappeared, there was certain special fish that we all know and love that also started to decline as a result of its.
She's talking about salmon.
Salmon, yes. Salmon are a keystone species. They indicate how healthy an environment is, and sometimes they're the first affected by big changes like this. And so something else that loves to eat salmon, that actually subsists primarily on salmon, are orcas. And we have this kind of love affair with our orcas. They're a big representation of the Pacific Northwest. They're really stunning animals and amazing predators, and they eat up to 300 pounds of salmon per day per orca. So with the salmon going down, so do the orcas. And so they're actually head down in these, and they've built these shells around them, and their feet stick up, and their feet look like little feather dusters, and they grab plankton out of the water, and that's what they eat. They bring it, they kind of look like this, and they bring it in towards their mouth from outside their shells, and they only open up when they're underwater. But when we get over to the other side, if you listen to the rocks, you can actually hear them moving. It sounds like Rice Krispies popping. There's a larger terrestrial snail in Asia, but this is the largest one that lives in salt water. And they actually, so this was made by a female moon snail, they take their eggs and they grab sand and they produce a kind of mucousy glue, and they sandwich the eggs in sand around themselves. So this is actually the shape and size of the snail that made this case, because she was inside here and she just kind of built this like wall of eggs around herself. And in this case, it's fairly thin. There's thousands of eggs, and it feels rubbery, and a lot of people mistake it for rubber or litter and throw them away, which is really sad. So eventually these will hatch. You generally find a lot of them in the springtime.
Anemone, anemone, dee 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 dee. Wait, another anemone, dee 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 dee.
Yeah, somebody was trying to dig it out. They actually can move.
Really?
Yeah, they're not anchored to the same spot.
Got a little tiny crab.
It's got its little insides.
So group, we had a great question.
Yeah, he's not a live crab,
Yeah, it's just a shell.
but he's a crab.
Little communities with their families, and what they do, so they don't make their own shells, they borrow them from other things that have discarded their shells. So this looks like it's a dog whelk shell, which is a predatory snail. He's gonna come out. If I hold still enough, he'll come out. And so what they do is when they need a new shell, they all line up. They find a new shell. They all line up from largest to smallest, and the largest gets the new shell and then passes its old shell on to the one behind it. So they basically have like little hand-me-down shells that they pass throughout their family. It's very cool. My little buddy's shy. I know.
What is it again?
Sitka shrimp. I saw something red and I thought that it was... Damn, dude.
He's very well camouflaged.
Yeah, so they use their claws and they kind of shimmy and they'll dig themselves into the sand.
He's blowing bubbles
That
to
scared
get
the
water
crap
in
out of me.
his
I did not
gills.
realize
How
he was so
cute is he? I like him. Those are the lungs.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this is a red rock crab. You can tell it's a red rock crab because the way it is. because it's red and it has black tipped claws. We also have Dungeness on this beach, but they have white tipped claws, and they're a little bit less red on the back. But this is a molt, so this crab is hopefully living its best life out somewhere. It is outgrown its shell, and so it's created a new one. And when they are ready, they've built a new soft little shell. They'll puff their bodies full of water enough that pop, back they come, and they'll back out of their old shell. But what's really interesting is these squishy little parts here are actually its gills. So it had to grow a new set of gills along with a new shell.
He's so cute.
Hello,
Oh, and we got some clams. These
Hello,
are some clam
little
siphons.
Crabby.
What's you eating? Are you eating dinner? Little crabby.
I see him. Maybe let's not. Let's touch it.
Another little guy. And there's more. And here's another one.
You can hear him. Oh yeah, he looks like.
And there's a bunch more.
Oh God.
I know she's like pushing me down, like dude.
I'm not pushing into you. He likes to squirt people.
What else?
All right,
There he went.
there's also some sea cucumber.
This is where we were during the last low tide. And that's where the tide is for the ultra low tide. Pretty interesting, huh?